Hi there, this is Brittany Riley. I'm cooking out of the Beautiful Kitchens and Home Appliance, and you're in the kitchen with Britt. Thanks for joining us. We are going to be doing a garlic and rosemary sous vide steak. So if you've heard of sous vide, basically translated it means under vacuum. So we do a vacuum seal around whatever it is that we're going to be submerging. Commonly we hear about steak and fish and meats and everything because what is so wonderful about sous vide is it will bring it to whatever temperature you set it at, and then it will hold it there. So for instance, with our steak, I'm going to set it to 130 degrees and it will bring it to temperature, and then it will remain right at 130. It will help to marinate it as well. But then basically when I pull that out and say I'm entertaining and maybe I have 8 to 10 people coming and they all want their steak at different temperatures, basically I know that every single one of them starts at 130, and all I need to do is get a grill mark on it and bring it to whatever temperature it is that I'm looking for. It should only take a minute or two, and it's going to be grilled to perfection or seared to perfection, whatever you plan to do from there. But there are a lot of other things that we can do sous vide. Basically everything has its perfect time and temperature. So any vegetable that you put in the sous vide and you set to the perfect temperature and it brings it to that, and you want to finish it however you're going to plan on serving it, it's going to be perfect. Mashed potatoes, our different green vegetables that we want to maintain that beautiful green color. It's also wonderful for infusing different things because we can bring it to such a low temperature. It wouldn't harm our beautiful flavors that we have in an olive oil, for instance, and we would be able to add something like rosemary and garlic to just olive oil in a bag, and it'll infuse it in a short amount of time. Something that we would normally have to do over the course of even months on a countertop can happen over the course of a couple of hours just in our sous vide. And same thing, other low temperature items that you would need to be careful with as far as infusing, and generally would choose to infuse on the countertop again, are alcohols. And we can do things like make like a limoncello or other infused alcohols in a really short amount of time. So that's kind of exciting about sous vide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a food sealer. And so I'll be able to add my steaks right into this, remove all of the air using that tool, and then submerge it into our sous vide vessel. If you do not have, a food sealer or something like that, you can actually use a BPA-free Ziploc bag, and if you leave it open just a little bit as you're submerging, it will naturally pull all of the air, so then you can just finish sealing as it goes in. The sous vide that I am lucky to be able to use here at Home Appliance is actually built into our range over in our signature kitchen suite kitchen. So it's the first one of that kind where it actually has a sous vide tank on their range. So I'll show you that once we get over there. But there's all sorts of different wands and things like that that you can buy where you would attach it to a large pot or container that you would fill with water. It brings that water to temperature, and then obviously anything that you put in. So lots of info about sous vide. Ask any questions that you might have because it's really kind of a fun and exciting way to cook. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to just get a little bit of a marinade that will go into the bag. So because of that vacuum seal and the water circulation that happens in sous vide, we can get a really nice deep marinade in a short amount of time as well, which is really exciting. So we're just gonna do a really simple one here. Some olive oil, a little bit of balsamic into that. We're gonna crack some freshly ground pepper in, and then I have this really nice black garlic sea salt that we'll use for seasoning as well. The black garlic sea salt is, black garlic is basically a fermented garlic. So we get all sorts of exciting pungent flavors and some health benefits as well. This is actually from the Gourmet Olive in Chesterland, Ohio. If you're not local, you can always go to the website, which is thegourmetolive.com. All right, and I'm just gonna gently whisk this together. And then right here, I have a nice sprig of rosemary and some thinly sliced cloves of garlic that will be going into each bag with the steak. So we will come back and show you how that's all gonna happen here in just a second. All right, so we are ready to get our steaks and ingredients right into our little sous vide bag. So I have some New York strip steak in the bag and all my ingredients prepped. And I chose strip steak just because I think it's a nice example of a really thick cut steak that is sometimes difficult to cook as we can start to overcook the outside and we're still not up to temperature in the center. So this is a good example of, you know, when your sous vide would really come in handy. So we have 8-ounce steak. I'm going to go ahead and just place a sprig of rosemary on top of it. I have that thinly sliced garlic and I'm gonna kind of press it into our steak. And then we have our little marinade here. And it really only takes, you know, a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of this marinade to really get a good flavor, just since we are sealing it. So I'll kind of stir it to make sure we get all the good stuff at the bottom. And try and drizzle it on the top of our steak here. And then what we'll do is we'll bring it over to our sealer and get rid of all that air, and then we'll put it in the sous vide. Okay, so this is the Signature Kitchen Suite range that I'm going to be using. And basically here is our setting. Obviously I'm not going to be placing these in there for 46 hours. I just set it at 48 so that I wouldn't run out of time, obviously. So I have it set at 130, and even though 135 is the lowest on the dial, you can continue to just change by 1 degree at a time depending on what you need. So I want it to be at 130, so then that way I can go to medium rare in a moment, I can go to medium in a moment, you know, whatever we want to cook to. So then here is our tank. There is a minimum fill line. I'm not going to need to, oops, let's see, get that all the way open, sorry. I'm not going to be needing to use the rack. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of the sous vide egg bites that they have at like Starbucks and things like that. You are able to use this for all sorts of different things, so sometimes that rack will come in handy. We have our steaks here that are all vacuum sealed and ready to go. And basically I'm just gonna submerge them, close up the tank, and then it does take about an hour and a half to bring them to temperature, which may sound like a long time, but this is something that you can do ahead of time, and then you have it completely ready for when you're ready to actually finish off and cook and eat. Another great thing about this as well is you can get a bunch of them prepped like I did, and then you can go ahead, let them kind of cool to room temperature, and then you can pop them in your freezer. And so then at that point, you pull them, defrost, and they're ready to go at any moment. So we will give this a little bit of time and check them out in a little bit. All right, so these guys have been in for just about 2 hours, so they are definitely ready. I'm gonna pull them out of the water bath and let them cool off a little bit because I am not ready to cook them right away. But if I was going to cook them immediately, all I would have to do is pull them out of the bag, pat them dry a little bit, kind of remove our marinade ingredients, and go ahead and just grill it up or sear it up. So these are at 130 and ready to go. Enjoy!